This story is titled, My Parents Hosted a Huge Pool Party to Mark My Departure. I wasn't invited. Hey everyone, let me tell you the story of how my parents never really liked me. It's not a happy tale, but I think it's important to share what happened and how it all started. Back in the day, my parents were that perfect high school couple everyone envies. Mom and Dad were the popular kids in Portland High. Total homecoming king and queen material. They were completely into each other, sharing wild dreams about traveling the world together. Their plan was to jet off right after getting their college diplomas, eager to experience everything life had to offer. They dreamed about eating authentic food in bustling Asian markets and exploring ancient temples in South America. The world was their oyster, and they couldn't wait to dive in. But life threw them the biggest curveball imaginable. Mom found out she was pregnant while they were both still deep in their college studies, nowhere near ready to be parents. At first, they were thinking about not keeping me, but then my soon-to-be grandparents got involved. They were completely against that idea and insisted that I had to be born no matter what. The pregnancy news hit Mom's college life hard. She couldn't handle all the whispers, couldn't deal with the stares, and all the gossip following her around campus. It got so bad that she had to make a tough choice. She ended up leaving college and moved back in with her parents. That's when I made my grand entrance into the world. Mom didn't exactly throw a welcome party when I arrived. Actually, she was pretty upset about the whole thing. But my grandparents? They were over the moon about me. They gave me all the love and care in the world for most of my early years. I actually thought Mom was my older sister for a while because the whole mom thing didn't make sense. She never acted like one. She was always doing her own thing, barely in the picture. Whenever I tried to get her attention, I either got screaming or complete silence. Dad was even worse, like a ghost in my life. I knew he existed somewhere, but he might as well have been a character in a story. Despite everything, my parents stayed together, trying to keep their relationship alive while dealing with me, their totally unplanned child. Don't get me wrong. I understand now that I wasn't part of their plan. They were young with big dreams and suddenly hit with this huge responsibility. But back then, I was just a little kid. I couldn't understand why there was this invisible wall between us, why they weren't more involved, why we didn't have that normal parent-child connection that other kids seemed to have. It hurt so much growing up feeling like an outsider in what was supposed to be my own family. Even though things were rough with Mom and Dad, my grandparents on both sides were absolute legends. They would spend time with me whenever possible, always there when I needed someone. They were just genuinely awesome people to be around, filling the void my parents left. Things started changing when Dad finally got his degree. I was already walking and talking by then. Something clicked in him when he saw me growing up. Maybe it was guilt, or maybe he finally realized he wasn't around much. He started visiting me every weekend. At first, I had no clue who he was and thought he was just another one of my grandparents' friends. Mom wasn't happy about these visits at all. She kept telling Dad to just leave me alone, but my grandparents had different ideas. They encouraged him to spend time with me, wanting us to build some kind of connection. That's how I finally figured out he was actually my dad, not just some random guy showing up at the house. After Dad got himself a job, everything started moving pretty fast. He proposed to Mom, they got their own place, and then Dad had this brilliant idea that I should move in with them. He wanted us to be a proper family. Mom was totally against it, but my grandparents, who were getting older, really pushed for this to happen. They wanted my parents to step up and finally take responsibility. After lots of back and forth, my parents finally agreed to take me in. I was just 5 years old when this happened, and let me tell you, it was not fun at all. I really didn't like living there. It felt like moving from a warm, loving home into some cold, unwelcoming place. Going from my grandparents to my parents was like stepping into a completely different world, and not in a good way. Every single day was a struggle. Mom would constantly remind me how lucky I was to even be living there. If I did anything she didn't like, she'd threaten to kick me out. Dad might as well have been invisible, working all day long and coming home super late. On those rare times I tried to hang out with him, I always got the same response. Too tired, need space. He was basically telling me to go to bed because he couldn't deal with me right then. Life at my grandparents had been full of warmth and love, but with my parents? It felt like they couldn't stand having me around, like I was some kind of burden they had to bear. I was too young to understand why they acted this way, but old enough to feel the pain of not belonging. Other kids had toys to play with and got treated to ice cream sometimes. I got nothing, not even basic attention. I would show up at school with incomplete homework, and the teacher would call mom about it. Then mom would lose it, call me lazy, and say I needed to handle my own school stuff. It was rough being in that situation, especially as a kid. I went from being loved by my grandparents to feeling completely unwanted in my parents' home. I was terrified of my mom and started doing homework right after school, all by myself. I thought maybe if I did everything perfectly, she'd finally start to see me differently. But that day never came. And Dad? He was living in his own world, not caring about what I did all day or how I was doing in school. As I got older, I started noticing how different things were when I compared my life to others. I would watch other parents at school being affectionate with their kids, giving hugs and kisses at drop-offs, just showing they cared. I got none of that. It felt like I was living with strangers, and I sometimes wondered if I was even their real kid. I would ask my grandparents about it during visits, and they always confirmed that I was definitely their child. They tried explaining that my parents just hadn't figured out how to be adults themselves. Meanwhile, Mom never missed a chance to say mean things to me. She made fun of everything: my hair, my glasses, even my weight. She even said if she'd been in high school with me, she would have bullied me. Who says that to their own kid? It was bizarre and painful. Living through all this was incredibly hard, trying to navigate a situation where you feel completely out of place and unwanted, which is heartbreaking for anyone, especially a kid growing up. One incident really showed the difference between my parents and grandparents. I had this serious milk allergy that my grandparents always knew about and took super seriously. But Mom, she thought it was all bullshit and refused to believe I was actually allergic. She said I was just trying to be trendy, constantly saying things like, "Kids in my day didn't have all these allergies." One day she pushed too far and forced me to drink milk. I ended up in the emergency room. Things got really serious. Police came to talk to Mom about what happened. That was her wake-up call. She never tried to make me drink milk again. Dad was furious with her, and it was the first time I ever saw him stand up to her. She actually started crying. My grandparents rushed to the hospital and stayed by my side the whole time. A lot of serious discussions happened while I was recovering. Something about that whole mess changed how my parents acted toward me. Mom actually started participating in my life. She would wake me up for school and help me get ready. Dad made time for me in the evenings and even started tucking me in at night. I couldn't really understand what caused the change, but suddenly they were treating me like a person. It was weird and unexpected. After that major wake-up call, things at home got better. Mom showed interest in my life and started asking about school and stuff. Dad included me in his activities and we'd watch football games together. During these moments, I finally started to understand my parents and connect with them somehow. I think I was naturally empathetic, and despite everything, I didn't hold grudges against them. We even started going to the beach on weekends, which became some of my happiest memories. I stopped feeling jealous of my classmates because my parents were finally showing me affection. When I was 15, I discovered I had this amazing talent for crocheting, all thanks to my grandma, Mom's mom. She had taught me before she passed away. I remember how she would create these incredible things with just a crochet hook. She'd sell them at the local craft fair, making several $100 each time. Her work was something special, always full of vibrant colors and super intricate patterns. I got completely sucked into the world of crocheting and spent hours and hours getting better at it. I was always thinking about Grandma while working, and her creativity really inspired me. Plus, I admired her entrepreneurial spirit. I decided to follow in her footsteps and started making my own crochet items. It felt like I was connecting with her legacy while finding my own path, creating unique, personalized pieces. I took a big step and set up my own booth at the exact same craft fair she used to sell at. People's reaction was amazing, better than I could have imagined. Word started spreading about my work, and custom orders started coming in, not just from classmates or friends, but from people all over the community. It felt incredible knowing each piece I made meant something special to someone, that each creation told its own story. As my small business picked up, I found myself diving deeper into the craft. I started experimenting with all kinds of yarns, trying different textures, playing with colors, and testing new patterns. My creations evolved from simple scarves and blankets to complex pieces of wearable art. I made unique home decor items that people absolutely loved. More positive feedback kept coming, and I got lots of returning customers, which made me push myself even harder to keep improving. When the money started getting good, my grandma suggested opening a savings account specifically for college. She was so proud of what I'd accomplished. I was excited to share the success with my parents, thinking they'd finally be impressed. But their reaction? It was the complete opposite of what I expected. They were shocked about the money I was making. They had dismissed my crocheting as just a silly hobby until they heard about the profits. Then they completely rejected the whole idea. Dad even threatened to destroy all my work, saying he wasn't working his ass off to pay for my education, just so I could waste time on stupid things. That's what he called my passion. It was devastating seeing how differently we saw things, how they couldn't appreciate my success. I had to face the reality that my parents hadn't changed. They were still just as self-centered as always. The whole situation was an eye-opener. Their reaction to my earnings was insane, demanding the money, then lashing out at Grandma when I said she was keeping it safe. It showed their true colors. They hadn't evolved at all. My grandma stood her ground, though. She refused to give them my hard-earned money when my parents tried claiming it was rightfully theirs. This made everything crystal clear. They were still just as selfish as before. It hit me hard realizing this, but it made me more determined. I had to protect my future. I realized my parents might not support my college dreams. Crocheting wasn't just a hobby anymore. It was my ticket to freedom, my lifeline to a future they might not provide. I had to get creative to keep working, so I started telling my parents I was at my best friend's house when I was actually working on crochet projects at Grandma's. My best friend was totally in on it and helped me keep the whole thing going despite my parents being against it. I wasn't proud of lying, but I had no choice. I had to protect my dreams and work towards a future that they were trying to destroy. Dealing with them, trying to control everything, and trying to take my money was really tough. But I couldn't give up my passion or my chance to make money, especially since college support looked unlikely. I kept working on crochet projects, filling orders from clients, telling my parents I was at my best friend's when I was actually at Grandma's working on our business. Grandma was amazing through all this. She helped me grow the business and taught me so much. I started using social media too, got on Instagram, TikTok, and set up Facebook, showing off my work and connecting with more people. This was huge, going from a local craft fair to a full online business. Grandma and I opened a joint bank account, keeping my earnings safe for college. I trusted her completely. She always had my back, unlike my parents who just wanted to use my money for themselves. Then one day, everything exploded. Mom found my online business when she went through my phone without permission and discovered I was still doing it despite their opposition. This led to a massive argument with my parents screaming at me and at Grandma. It was a complete disaster, but it made me even more determined to work for my future, my way. They demanded all my money, saying I owed them for raising me and taking care of me. I was almost crying, trying to explain that this was for college and wasn't hurting anyone. Dad screamed about trust, saying he couldn't trust me anymore because I went behind their backs. Mom made me delete Instagram, standing right there watching, making sure I did it. I was smart though. I just deactivated instead of deleting, so I could activate it again later when I was free from them. My parents implemented strict phone restrictions after that. I had specific time windows, 9 a.m. to 4 p.m., then 12 a.m. to 8 a.m. when I could use my phone. They started tracking my location and monitoring all my internet history. They set up notifications for everything. Even innocent stuff triggered alerts like trying to shop for underwear. I could only go out with friends twice a week and had to come straight home after. They'd call me constantly if I didn't, and would call my friends too. I was sometimes allowed to see Grandma, but only for a couple hours after school, and they banned me from doing any crocheting with her. They threatened to take away my phone and internet if they caught me crocheting. There were so many days I wanted to run away, but I was still 17 and had nowhere to go. I asked my parents about getting a part-time job since the local cafe was hiring. They actually allowed it, but with a catch. I had to give them 30% of my earnings. I agreed without fighting and gave them their 30% every week, then secretly gave the other 70% to Grandma for my bank account. My parents made life harder and harder. They were constantly barging into my room, checking everything, going through my chats, reading my emails, and always monitoring my location. If I didn't follow their rules, I either got grounded or had to give them more money that week. Despite all this bullshit, I focused on school and kept my grades up. I knew I needed to get into a good college to escape this life, so I worked my ass off studying. The night before turning 18, I packed everything I'd bought myself but left clothes and my phone in my room. I wiped the phone clean first so they couldn't find anything. I knew they wouldn't let me take their stuff, so I didn't even try. The plan was already set. Grandma was coming early morning to help me move out. My parents were shocked seeing me leave. They started fighting with Grandma and threatened to call the police. I told them to go ahead because I was 18 now and could do whatever I wanted. Then they tried blackmail, saying they'd tell everyone about what an ungrateful daughter I was and how everyone would shun me for leaving my parents. I didn't care anymore. They threatened no college help, and I just smiled at that one. I had saved enough plus got a scholarship, so I didn't need their help anymore. As I walked out that house, I felt a mix of emotions, fear, relief, and determination. Little did I know, my journey was about to get even more interesting. The first few weeks at Grandma's were like breathing fresh air for the first time. All those strict rules were gone, and I finally could breathe without constant monitoring. The first thing I did was get myself a new phone with a new number too. I went to the bank with Grandma, took all my documents, and converted my minor account to an individual one. I can't describe how happy I felt getting my own card, my own account, with no more asking for permission. I reactivated my Instagram and got back to my crocheting business. Grandma was awesome as usual. She offered me space in her house and set up a little makeshift studio where I could finally get back to work. Then I found out something wild. Just a week after I moved out, relatives and old neighbors told me my parents threw a party. Not just any party, but a celebration of their independence. They were super happy, calling it the start of their new family, free from the burden of having me around. They invited all their child-free friends and posted tons of pictures online of them, laughing and drinking without a care in the world. At first, it really hurt. My own parents celebrating my absence just a week after I left, showing off their newfound freedom. It felt like a cruel twist of fate. Dad's parents were shocked too when they heard about the celebration. They tried reaching out to me. They travel a lot in their RV exploring the country, so I hadn't talked to them in years. They finally got my new number from one of my cousins and called me immediately, wanting to know everything. I told them the whole truth about everything with my parents and how they'd been treating me, why I had to leave. They were completely shocked and asked why I never reached out before. I explained about the phone monitoring and how I couldn't really talk to anyone except a few friends and Grandma. That's when they told me something. My parents never wanted me in the first place. They thought my parents had changed when I moved in with them. They begged me to forgive them for not being there through everything. They talked with my Grandma too, and she told them about all the fights and how she had to protect me from my parents. After this conversation, Dad's parents took action. They told every single family member what my parents had done to me. News spread through relatives, and family friends found out too. Everyone started calling and offering support. I was surprised how sympathetic they were. Some offered money, but I refused and told them about my business instead, asking them to spread the word and help me get more clients. My business started picking up slowly, and then I got amazing news. I was accepted into my dream college with a full scholarship too. Life was finally changing for the better. College wasn't far from Grandma's place, so I could visit her every weekend and keep working on my crocheting. Dad's parents stepped up and gave me their old car. It needed some repairs, but it was totally manageable and made it easier to visit Grandma. Then something unexpected happened. A friend working at the local newspaper reached out to me. They wanted to write a story about me, saying there weren't many young entrepreneurs in our area with their own business. They thought my story could inspire others. I had to think about it, but finally agreed to the interview. I didn't think it was a huge deal. My business still needed work, but I hoped it might help some kid like me stuck in a toxic environment who might read it and feel inspired. When the story came out, it felt surreal seeing it in the paper. I know it's a small achievement being in a local paper, but for the first time in a long time, I felt proud of myself. Proud of working so hard despite all the difficulties. Grandma was over the moon, super proud of me. Relatives and friends reached out, congratulating me on my success. It felt weird getting praise since my parents never supported or complimented me while I was growing up. My parents must have read the story because they called Grandma immediately, started screaming at her, and said I betrayed them by going behind their backs. They made new demands, saying that since I started the business while living with them, I had to give them credit publicly because relatives were bashing them since I told the truth about their control. They also demanded a share of the profits and threatened to take me to court. Grandma shut them down fast. She told them the business was under her roof and they could try court if they wanted, but they'd lose. I was so angry at my parents. I wanted to scream and yell, but I knew it wouldn't help. Instead, I decided to do something else. I organized a small celebration, inviting close family and friends, people who actually loved me. I was going to college anyway, and deserved one last hurrah. We had an amazing time that night. Of course, my parents found out about the celebration somehow. They got my new number and started texting nonstop, calling me an ungrateful daughter and saying they wish they never had me. Dad sent a long text about spending his life providing for me, and now I was wasting money celebrating with other people. It was funny how they didn't see the irony. They celebrated when I left, but they were mad at me for celebrating with people who actually care about me. I posted my story online, and I had no idea it would blow up. I saw it reposted on social media a few days later and started getting scared my parents might find out. Everyone was telling me to block my parents, and I was planning to do exactly that, but I wanted to send a final email first to let them know exactly what they did and how they made me feel. I'm not a doormat like some people said, just a kid with toxic parents. Society teaches us that parents want what's best for us. Nobody teaches what to do when you have toxic ones or how to cut them off. Some people blamed me for letting my parents walk all over me, but I'm young and still learning to stand up for myself. Grandma helped me write the email and organize my thoughts. Here's what I wrote them. Dear Mom and Dad, I've spent a long time thinking about our past, present, and future, about our relationship. With a heavy heart, I've realized I need to cut ties with you both for my own well-being. I spent my entire childhood yearning for your love and trying to meet your expectations, but it was never enough. I worked so hard to understand why you seemed to dislike me and tried everything to be accepted, but you never did. From my earliest memories, when Mom forced milk on me despite my allergy, to feeling like a stranger at home, your actions shaped everything and showed how toxic our family was. I still held on, hoping for change, for a connection that never came. When I found purpose in crocheting thanks to Grandma's guidance, I thought it might bring us closer. Instead, you tried to control me and undermine everything I built. That made me realize I had to leave. Your threats about my money and trying to control my celebrations showed your true toxic nature. I want you to understand this isn't about revenge or acting from anger. It's about self-preservation and building a life free from toxicity, with the love and support I deserve. I don't hate either of you, but I must prioritize my well-being. Thank you for pushing me to become independent and for underestimating my potential. I wish you both the best and hope you're finally happy without me. Please respect my decision and let's part ways amicably. I had tears in my eyes while writing this email. I know I should be strong and remember all the bad things they did, but it's so hard to cut off parents. We're conditioned to love them, and it's difficult to break free from that thinking. After sending the email, I blocked them everywhere. With just a few days until college started, I was feeling nervous about it. Grandma and Dad's parents were helping me move into my new dormitory. I was excited about meeting new people and making new friends. Everyone was asking about my business, and my crocheting was still going strong. I wasn't going to quit despite college. I love making unique designs. It's my real passion, and I was determined to work hard to manage both school and my business. It's been 6 months since my last update, and I can't believe how different my life is now. First and most important, I am absolutely thriving in college. The classes are challenging, but I'm putting in the work and maintaining good grades. I know I need a college degree even with my successful business. I need something to fall back on. I've made incredible friends here. They even help get more crochet orders. College life has opened new horizons for me, letting me meet different kinds of people. It's such a refreshing change from the isolation I experienced back home. I even have a boyfriend now. His name is Kyle, and we've only been dating 2 months, so we're still getting to know each other. He's really sweet though, and we'll see how it goes. I still visit Grandma every weekend, working from her makeshift studio and fulfilling all our crochet orders. The business is actually booming, and we're getting overwhelmingly positive responses from all our clients. It's amazing how following my passion has provided me with financial stability, plus a sense of purpose and real fulfillment in life. As for my parents, it's been quiet for 6 months since that heartfelt email. They haven't tried contacting me. My grandparents told me something interesting. My parents got lots of criticism from everyone and decided to sell everything and move out of the country, looking for a fresh start somewhere else. I don't know where they went, and truth is, I don't really care. The fact that they left without trying to reconcile or apologize says everything. I genuinely hope they find happiness wherever they've gone. I hope they can finally do the things they always wanted. It's time for me to focus on my own journey and keep building the life I dreamed of. I've learned an important lesson through all of this. Surround yourself with people who uplift and believe in you. Thanks to my grandma and friends who always believed in me, I'm doing better than I ever could have imagined. This is my final update. Thank you, everyone, for your support.